From KCRW, this is Here Be Monsters. And just a heads up that about 12 minutes into this episode, there's a brief mention of domestic violence. Okay, here's the show.
So I remember this one time. It was my 13th birthday, and we got a letter in the mail that said we could go to the post office and pick up a package from my dad. And of course that was so exciting. And it rarely happened, so when it happened it was like Christmas. What was in that box, he said, was a children's book for kids the age of 5 to 7. The thought was there. It was nice. I mean, he had probably gone into a bookshop and he knew I liked to read. He just didn't realize that it was probably not the kind of thing you sent to a 13-year-old. That was when I realized that my dad had no idea how old his children were, or who they were, or what kind of people they were. I mean, I always knew that my dad was weird, but this was when I realized that something was completely off. I felt so disappointed, but in his head, he just had a little girl. And I think that was the last time he ever gave me a birthday present. So I should treasure it, right? I should think that this was the best. Sometimes when you spend a lot of time in your own company, it's difficult to be a part of the world again. And every time I do something that reminds my mom of my dad, she always says, "Oh, you're so like your dad." And yeah. And that is a good thing, because I think he was a great person. But it's also something that scares me.
Here Be Monsters, the podcast about...
Ska jag fortælle lidt om Paul og Don Hammond?
The podcast about...
The unknown.
So today I'm going to see my dad's childhood home. It's a small seaside town called Skagen in the northern tip of Denmark. I'm going because I always had a lot of questions about my dad. My parents were separated before I was born, and he had this mental condition that made it difficult for him to deal with everyday life. So I never really got to know him. So I'm going to Skagen to see if I can find him somehow. I got a lot from my dad. My eyes, my ears, my hair, my face, my body, my physique, my whatever. And my mind. But I have my mom's homeland. My mom and her family is from this tiny country in the North Atlantic called Faroe Islands. And it is, it's this windy place. Trees can't grow there. It's so beautiful and amazing, and unlike Denmark, the sky doesn't have to be blue or black or white as it is today, sort of grey. It can be green or red or whatever else the Northern Lights want to be. I went to Copenhagen yesterday. I went to see where my dad lived for the longest period while he lived over there. And I took the train to the station that is maybe 2 minutes walk from where he lived. And I got off the train and I walked up the stairs and through the station and down the stairs again onto the street and onto his street. And it was these motions that I had gone through so many times before in my life. And I remember this time when my sister and I, we had long hair and my mom had braided it when it was wet, so we got curls. And we went to see my dad, and he would often pick us up if we went to the central station in Copenhagen. But when we could just go to the station next to where he lived, we would just walk up to his place. And he was in the street. Maybe he was walking to the station to see us. I don't know. But he didn't recognize us because we had this curly hair. And it was so strange. I just remember the feeling of happiness seeing my dad and his sort of confusion that he couldn't recognize us, but I suppose that was okay. Because when we got closer, of course, he could see who we were. But it was like I could see us there on the street. Like I could turn back time and see these people that we were walking along the street. And then from there on, I walked through this park, and where we went all the time with my dad. I think my dad was really playful and funny. I'm not sure. And I remember this one time when we went there, and it was winter, it was frozen. But my dad and I, we were walking out in the path, and I fall, and I say to him, "Wait for me," and he stops, and he sort of glides and falls on top of me, and so we just lay there like two idiots. And we sort of slowly crawl into the grass so we can get up. And it was a lot of fun. And I had this feeling when I went there to the street and to these places, like I was there with him in a way. Whenever it's the 27th of January, which was when he died, I get this feeling. I can't explain it, it's just a feeling. It's not good or bad feeling. It's like, this feeling of spring, the feeling of you think of something and then you can feel it. You can feel like it's going to rain. You have this feeling. So right now I'm standing in an area in Aarhus called Moskov. There's an old manor here and this big garden, and there's a museum that have an exhibition called something like Life Beyond Death. And they have this room full of death masks from different countries. The place reminds me of a time when I was a teenager. I was 14. And we had to do this project in school, writing a paper, and we could choose whatever we wanted. And I remember some of the boys, they wrote about robots and drugs, and the girls, I think one of them wrote about friendship, and so it was broad, we could do whatever. I wrote about life after death, or what different faiths and peoples and philosophers they thought would happen when we died. It probably wasn't a great paper. I think I got what is probably a B or C something, because my teacher thought it was too philosophical. I don't know what that means. But my mom was mad because she thought that it was better than that. So she sent it to my dad, who, when he studied university, he studied philosophy. He was qualified to look at this paper, I guess. And while I did this paper, I did an interview with a boy from my year's mom. And she had died. She was strangled by her husband. So I asked her, what was it like? What happened when you die? How did it feel? And what was the experience? And her story was that she felt warmth and happiness and relief. And when she woke up again at the hospital, she felt some sort of disappointment. She was, of course, happy to be alive, but this relief was something very special. I had forgotten all about this until, I don't know, a month ago or so. And my dad, when he died, he was, it was January, so it had been pretty cold. Oh, he was found by this woman while he was still alive, and he told her, please call an ambulance, I need help. She didn't have a phone, so she ran to the nearest house. And he was outside, he was alone, he was in pain. When the ambulance came, he was dead, lying on the ground, all blue and purple. It was really painful for me that he died in that way. And I know that the people he lived with, they hadn't seen him for days before he died. So, yeah, he had probably been out there for days in the cold. And when I think about the way my dad died, I think that if he felt relief and warmth and happiness, then maybe that's fine. Maybe that's okay then. I mean, then maybe it doesn't really matter how you die. It's all about what comes next, that moment of relief. I suppose my paper concluded that when you're dead, you're dead. Which is, in some weird way, a relief when it comes to my dad, because I know that he lived in pain, both mentally and physically, and I wouldn't want him to go on, even if it was some place that was less painful. I don't think, because it was his mind that was ill, right? So I don't think he would ever have found real relief. He died from this blood clot in his brain, which is often a lifestyle-related illness. But the thing was that he was poor. He couldn't afford real food. And so he lived on white bread, the cheapest kind you can get, with maybe nothing on it. He had always, even when he had a job, he would spend his money on other things rather than food. So in my head, I've always had this magical, amazing secret book club with my dad. And whenever I would read something, for as long as I can remember, I would ask him, what do you think about this? Inside my head. And he would answer, and we would have this discussion or whatever. And one book I read with my dad inside my head was The Shining. And, well, I love Stephen King. I think he has an amazing ability to write believable children. The Shining is something that touches me deep inside. That's such an amazing book. And I think Danny was always my hero. I wanted to be able to deal with my dad the way that Danny can deal with his. And I wanted to read something from it. This is, in my version, page 475, so near the end. The face in front of him changed. It was hard to say how. There was no melting or merging of the features. The body trembled slightly, and then the bloody hands opened like broken claws. The mallet fell from them and thumped to the rug. That was all. But suddenly his daddy was there, looking at him in mortal agony, and a sorrow so great that Danny's heart flamed within his chest. The mouth drew down in a quivering bow. "Doc," said Jack Torrance, "run away, quick, and remember how much I love you." "No," Danny said. "Oh, Danny, for God's sake." "No," Danny said. He took one of his father's bloody hands and kissed it. "It's almost over." I always loved my dad more than I cared about who he was. My mom always said to me, the reason why your dad isn't calling back and the reason why he isn't answering your letters or your emails is that he doesn't have anything to offer. But if you love someone, you don't require anything. I didn't need him to be anyone. I just needed him to be there. It was just too difficult because it wasn't just being a dad he had to deal with, it was the world. And sometimes the world is just too much for you. when he died, I went to the doctor and I said, can I get a psych evaluation, something to see if I have something that he had. And because at that point I knew my sister, she had both ADHD and borderline. I don't know what my dad had. I know he was some kind of autism, but not really what that was. But my mom always said that she thought he was strange because he had a really traumatizing childhood. And his sister told my mom that she thought that she had healed him. Of course he did have a traumatizing childhood, but he wasn't healed. I just don't think anyone ever knew how to deal with him or what was going on, and he didn't want to deal with it either. So I wanted to deal with it before it became a problem or became something big, because I have realized that some things that I had always, like anxiety, which comes to me in these attacks where I can't breathe and I can't feel my body, and I had that always and I didn't know what it was. It scares me that I might have some of the stuff, some of what my dad had. Yeah, I don't know what I'm trying to say. It's just that I fear that I get too far away from the world sometimes. Hej mor.
Hej.
Hvad hedder du? Og hvad er du min mor?
Jeg er din mor, og jeg hedder Anna-Maria.
Ja, okay.
Ja. Skal jeg fortælle lidt om Paul og donhammerne?
My mom, she's very special to me, I guess. She is probably the best person I ever known. She was the one who had to take all of the shit, and she had her own things and her own problems and her own depressions. But she always pulled through.
Ja. Vi cyklede stort set hver dag rundt i naturen. Og så kom vi forbi den her sø ude i Brabrand, hvor vi kunne se, at der var donhammer. Og så fortalte jeg ham, at dem kunne jeg godt lide, for jeg synes, de var så smukke, og dem kunne jeg have i en stor vase på stuegulvet. Og så tog vi hjem, og så glemte jeg alt om det. Og så næste morgen, da jeg stod op, der kunne jeg se, at der hang masser af vådt tøj inde på badeværelset. Og fandt ud af, at Paul i løbet af natten havde været cyklet ud til den her sø, og var vadet ud helt op til livet. Og plukket donhammer til mig. Ja. Det var sådan, han var. Fordi det kunne jeg godt lide, så det hentede han. Og hvis han var ude at køre cyklede selv alene, så havde han stort set altid vilde blomster med hjem til mig. Fordi det kunne jeg godt lide. Og det kunne han også selvfølgelig godt lide. Og de donhammer, de stod der og var så flot i vores stue, indtil sollyset fik dem til at springe ud. Så fløj der rundt med donhammer. Donhammer frø i hele stuen. Så var de ikke
I try to keep in contact with her, but you know how it can be difficult to stay in touch with people.
Okay, thanks.
So I try calling her a couple of times a week just to check in and see how it's going. Hej mor, hvad så? Forstyrrer jeg?
Nej.
Okay. Jeg tænkte på, om jeg ikke skal komme forbi i dag.
Det vil glæde mig meget.
Ja, okay.
Ja.
Jamen,
Hvornår kommer du?
om en times tid eller sådan noget.
Okay.
Okay, vi ses.
Så er jeg godt nok.
Ja.
Ja, okay.
Okay. Hej. Today is the 14th of March. I am in Skane, the town where my dad grew up. And right now I'm sitting in the graveyard where my dad's family is buried. I'd just been to see his childhood home, and the house was really small. I don't know, it had a big garden. He had a really tough childhood. He was bullied a lot. He was very tall, and he reached maturity before all of the other boys, so they would tease him, and they would hang him up on the wall, and they would pull down his pants for everyone to see. And he had problems from the beginning. He couldn't be normal, or he couldn't be what people expected normal was. And they didn't understand him, and they didn't know how to treat him. So he moved away when he was 16 to another town, to a institution for mentally ill youngsters. So he only lived here for about 16 years. But I think those 16 years were really hard. And while I was standing there, just now, on the street, and I was looking at this house, and it was strange because suddenly I was just hit with this grief and this feeling that I wanted to go back in time and find my dad and say, I love you, and yeah. I just wanted to, help him. This place is the sun is up, and it's a really beautiful day, and the wind is really hard, but so while it's cold, it's also really beautiful, and And one of the reasons why I decided to go to a graveyard, now that I think of it, was because I asked my mom where I should go when I came here. And she said that when her and my dad, they would go here, they would always go through the graveyard and past the church. I suppose down to the harbour. But there's not a lot of place to go around here. She said that he loved to walk around here. I don't think that makes sense. It is a nice place. It really is. And graveyards are great if you want to be alone. But anyway, I came home with sand in my shoes and in my hair, and it was okay, and I slept for 12 hours. And in my head, sand in my shoes, and in my head, the northern lights. Green and red. The northern lights want to be green and red. Green and red. The northern lights want to be. My mom and her family is from this tiny country in the North Atlantic called Faroe Islands. And I remember sitting in my grandmother's kitchen looking out in the fjord in the morning, drinking tea, and tea tastes so much better up there because the water is clean, it's from the mountains, it's so different from it is here. And I have this itch, I want to go back there. But I'm afraid that if I give in to this fascination of remote islands, I might never come back to the real world. But you never know, right?
Klein produced this episode of Here Be Monsters. Anna is a master's student of visual culture at the University of Copenhagen. My name is Jeff Entman, and I edited this episode with Bethany Denton. Now, this is our 100th episode, and it's also the end of season 6. Now, if everything goes according to plan, we'll be back around September with another 20 episodes for you. But in the meantime, Beth and I will be taking some vacations, we'll be recording new episodes, Beth's getting married, and I am yet again moving. In the midst of all this, we'll also be working on those HBM sweatshirts, and when those are ready, we'll announce it over on our Facebook, our Twitter, and our Instagram, which are all pretty easy to find. But if you want links, we've got them up on our website, which is hbmpodcast.com, where you can also find our entire back catalog of shows. Now, during our break, we do have a request for you. Over the past couple of years, Beth and I have been fortunate to meet a lot of you in person, via email, or on social media. This has always been a really great experience. We really do like you. And if you like us too, it would really mean the world to us if you could talk with just a couple of your favorite people and mention what we do at HBM. Borrow their phone and download your favorite episode and just tell them why you like it, or why you appreciate it, or why it makes you think differently about the world. This is really how the show grows. It's always been this way. It's always been word of mouth, and it means so much for the future of the show. And we really appreciate if you can help us out in this way. It means so much. Thank you. And another thank you to KCRW. And surely by now you've heard the names of our editor at the Independent Producer Project, Nick White, and our manager there, Kristen Lepore. But there are a lot of others who help out behind the scenes whose names you might not know, like Gary Scott, Juan Bonigno, Adria Kloke, Mia Fernandez, Dustin Milam, Christopher Ho, Caitlin Shamberg, JC Swiatek, and many others. We really appreciate your help so much. Music on this episode came from Lucky Dragons and The Black Spot. All right, that's all for now. Thanks for listening. More episodes soon.